Okay, so let's just start off. So before the day two, what we plan to go through is a quick revision, basically just some pointers that we have studied in day one. So basically a quick revision sort of stuff. So we started with what is business analysis and what is a business analyst, basically understanding these concepts. Then the various skills of a business analysis that he or she would possess. Then the various software development life cycles like a waterfall, the V model. And then finally we'll delve into Agile. We learned what Agile is, what is Agile Manifesto, the Agile principles, then a quick comparison of the Agile and the traditional process that we follow. Then we discussed a lot of stuffs about the iron triangle in Agile, where we know that the scope is always variable and not fixed, unlike other models. Then we understood the Agile processes, like what are the various ceremonies that happen in Agile, how sprint planning takes place, what's a retrospective, what's a backlog stuff, etc. And then the Scrum process as well, the daily stand-up that we do. Then other concepts like of Agile, which is the extreme programming, lean, and finally some principles of a business analyst, um, then the discovery framework and the delivery framework that an Agile BA would perform, and then finally the planning. So do you have any questions so far?
No.
Great. So we will be now directly jumping into the planning bit of it. So day two completely talks about the various horizons which are there in Agile, and today we'll be just covering one of them, and gradually we'll be picking them one by one. So before we get into this concept of horizons, so just a very generic example, or just a very simple one, is basically, suppose you're planning a party. So when you basically plan a party, the first thing that you would have in your mind is the vision of the party or the theme, like why are you having the party, or do you want to have a theme party, that kind of a thought. And then you would gradually decide upon so that's your first thought that comes whenever you start planning a party. And then the second thing would be, okay, what's going to be in the menu, where is the venue, etc. Who all you're going to invite, basically preparing the invite list. And the third bit would be having a detailed plan about the party. You'll have making the shopping list or writing down the various recipes. Now, along the way, from your visioning to detailing down, there will be a lot of things that you will be learning upon. So based on your guest list, you might know that certain guests have allergies on certain stuffs, and this might require you to change one of your menu. Then based on the weather conditions, probably you've thought to have an open house party somewhere in the lawn, but then due to rain you might have to change your permission along the way. So, the various changes that you do from, when you even thought of having a party till the time you had the party. So that complete process that you go through is nothing but the different horizons that we're talking about. So business analysts use these kind of horizons to basically plan and execute their work. And what are the type of horizons that we have is strategy horizons, initiative horizon, and delivery horizon.
Okay.
Right. So the strategy horizon is at the top of it, so which is the topmost layer, wherein you just you talk with your sponsors, you try to understand what the requirement is all about, you build portfolios and have a strategic vision. So in this case, probably you'll also have to understand what the organization strategy is. So it's basically the very top level of initial the foundation of your product or the application that you'll be building upon. So just to understand what the organization strategy is all about, analyzing the data, sort of competitor analysis that you do, understanding who your customers are, helping the ideas and the, all these things will help you to come to take a decision, like why you want, why is this thought provoking in your mind, and why do you feel that this is the product, or this is the application that you're building will help your organization grow. So that level, that complete initial level, is the top level, is your strategic horizon.
Okay.
Also, two important things that you need to keep in mind in this is like, what are the needs worth satisfying, like something that that this is the need of the organization for which we'll be building, and then based on that probably you'll think like what you'll have to create, what you'll have to change. Suppose it always might not be something that you're building new, but probably you already have something and you think that based on the organization's requirement you have to change an existing product or to change an existing application. So all these decisions, everything there, the top level is at the strategy level. Then comes the initiative bit, wherein you are engaging with your product owner and stakeholders. So this is a much more refined version than what we have in strategy. Strategy is a very high level wherein you just having lot many thoughts within your head and trying to analyze, do a lot of study. In the initiative, you have actually narrowed or funneled down some of it, and then you're just trying to engage with your product owners and stakeholders. You hear the product owner would, or a business analyst would already create the product vision, like what the product is aiming to do. So you've streamed down the features and the roadmap of the product. And then finally we have the delivery horizon, wherein you're just directly engaging with your team, you're writing down user stories, you're writing your requirements, your test cases, and your main aim is to deliver stuff.
Okay. What's the difference between strategic vision and product vision?
Right. Strategic vision would be always based on the organization vision itself. Like, why do you want to pick it up? So, what is the organization going to benefit out of it? And product vision will be more a product specific. Suppose you're building so strategic vision will not have anything related to the product. Based on the strategic vision, you would come up with your product, right? So, my product is probably to have a banking application or something like that. And then when you have the product vision tells you where exactly you're trying to look for. So if you are planning to deliver in 3 months, your product will just have probably not everything, not the integration to that level will not be there. You will be just looking for some MVP, which is the minimum viable product, to just take it to the release. So product vision would be just wherein you know where you will be going to. So the time frame in the initiative horizon, it's less than the strategic horizon. Strategic horizon, it starts with around around 3 years to, it can take years to just discover and analyze data and come up with your strategic vision. However, when you're dealing with your initiative horizon, it might be for around 6 months to a year or so, wherein you have a complete goal in your mind. You know what this product is going to do. So it would have a login screen. It would you can transfer your money. You can also have a wallet within it. So that high level features that you have in your head, and that okay, this is what I have, and this is my product, or my vision, or the roadmap. That's what is the initiative design. So basically the product vision is nothing but a subset of the strategic vision. That's what you can just say.
Okay.
And then when you come to the delivery, it is much more refined. So you know exactly what all features you're going to do. The complete the basic low level things that you're going to work upon, the basic minute features that you're going to work upon.
What's the time frame for delivery?
Delivery time frame can be for 2 to 3 months, or max to max 6 months, because these days I don't think any project would take 6 months as well, because we have this continuous integration and delivery, wherein you're always trying to have the minimal viable product created and push it to live, and then again you take your feedback and again push the rest of the stuffs.
Okay.
Right. So if you see the value spectrum chart here, so this been divided into three different horizons, and it starts with the strategic, wherein you do a market and company analysis. So here again, you would come up with your a lot of analysis work that you do, your competitor analysis. You can take out your organization's performance chart, where how exactly the organization has been performing for past couple of years, and where do you think the improvement lies. And then probably you have a lot of brainstorming and discussions with the different stakeholders, with different people, and then gradually come up with your product roadmap. So at the end of the strategic vision, you get to see that there is a at a strategic horizon, you get to see that there is sort of a vision that you create. So as and when you analyze more and you do a lot of study about the data and your organization structure, you basically come up with a strategic vision. Okay, this is where I am targeting. So probably there is something manual, some manual work happening, manual process that happens in your organization, and you think that okay, this is where I have to hit upon. I have to make this digital. So that becomes a strategy vision, that okay, you are digitalizing one particular process, and the product that you think about doing it, okay, in order to digitalize this, I need to create a product that would have XYZ features. That becomes basically your product vision. So that comes under the initiative phase. So in the initiative phase, you are more grooming yourself, or more brainstorming on the various the product that you have thought about, the roadmap, and etc., creating the backlog and other stuffs. And then finally, the delivery phase, again, it's the user stories, the testing, the acceptance criteria. So gradually, if you see, the delivery phase will actually take you to the actual value that you're going to achieve. And of course, strategic vision gives a potential value to the organization as a whole.
Okay.
Great. So overview on different horizons is what we plan to do. And then there are all these basic topics that we'll be going in depth, which is decision goals, business analyst practitioners, and the time horizons for each.
Okay.
So before we go into, so today's topic will be mainly covering the strategic horizon. So before we go into that completely, just a brief idea about how the various horizons are interlinked with each other. So if you see this diagram here, it says that it in the strategic horizon is where you're doing your maximum decision making, of course, and then this is where you need to like you need to think all these stuffs, like is the need worth satisfying, like do you want to create a new initiative, or you want to change some existing initiative, or some process which is already there and you think it's just a waste in your organization. You can even cancel that. So everything that you think in a strategic horizon is everything is based on your organization's benefit, or your organization's how it will help your organization to grow. So from there, if you see the arrow that comes downwards to the initiative horizon. So who are the people need to pass on to this strategic horizon decisions are the team who is basically working on it. And if there are any other dependencies or any other dependent team working on that initiative, you just need to pass it on. So it's like it basically starts at the very top management level and then gradually comes down. So then the next is the initiative horizon. So here you're basically discussing the various features that you would deliver and in what sequence. So the release plan is also a part of the initiative horizon, wherein you know that okay, your product is a 6 months your project is going to be a 6 month long project, and probably within that 6 months you will be making frequent releases. So what's going to be a release plan, and in what order you're going to deliver the features. So that becomes your initiative horizon, wherein you continue to change or cancel any of the initiatives that's coming from the strategic horizon.
If the initiative is doable, where would that fall? Strategy?
Sorry?
What if we have to talk about how, if the initiative is doable or not?
Yeah.
It will be strategy?
That will be strategy. Correct. So you basically have to decide upon whether whatever you're thinking about is doable or not, and everything. So that is decided at the top level, which is the strategy. So we'll come there as well. So there are a couple of slides on that. And then finally, we have the horizon, the delivery horizon, wherein you're actually working upon the features and you're just pushing it live. and you also realize, like, do you have enough to deliver in these stuffs. Now from the delivery horizon, there can be some user feedbacks that you have got, some learnings, etc. So those are again passed on to the initiative horizon, and there you take a call whether these feedbacks are actually worth taking, whether these feedbacks will really help the organization to grow, and then it probably moves up to the strategy. So if you see, it's a continuous process, that from the strategy to initiative, then delivery, and then probably the feedbacks that you get, that are again, it's a cycle that you're following, that again goes back to the initiative and then the strategy.
Is it necessary that each feedback will go all the way up to strategy horizon?
It's not necessary, like in basically in real life, when you're doing it, it is always not necessary, because if you get very small feedback, because in the delivery horizon, it's the customer who will be seeing the actual product, and if the feedbacks are really very small, and like very small changes, just to have a drop down somewhere, or just to have a label text somewhere, those wouldn't require you to take it up to the strategy level. But if there is some change that they're asking for, which requires a change in a process, so whatever you have developed, probably the customer says or the stakeholder says, why can't we do it in another way? So that probably will require you to pull it up to the strategy level, where then you'll have to think about, like, whether this really adds a value to the organization that you're thinking of. And then of course the time frame and other bits will also come into picture.
Each horizon takes a call.
Yeah, each horizon has to take a call before pushing it to the other one. Now, while doing all these, in the different horizons, there are various methods that we use for planning. So there are various planning methods that we will be going through. So the first one is the predictive planning. So what we do in predictive planning is basically, here we do a detailed analysis of everything, what needs to be done. And the main economic driver in this predictive planning is the cost of change curve. So if you see the curve, the graph here is the cost of change. And this suggests that, the later a mistake or something, a feedback is found, that would cost more to fix it. And hence the suggestion here is to spend more time analyzing it in the beginning rather than finding it later. Right. So basically, the problem here is, you have to be very sure, and you can spend a lot of time analyzing it, but once your analysis is done, then probably you can start off with the work. So that's what it is said. And this horizon, the other stuff is, the duration can be high because you're taking a lot of time just sitting and planning. And then any deviation from the plan, because once the plan is formed, any deviation that is done from the plan based on the any feedback or etc. is considered as a risk. So these kind of planning is what the project managers would basically do while they plan a project. So, but then again, another drawback here is, like, any feedback, just we were talking about, any feedback that you get from the customer can also be suppressed, or you might not take it up, because that might change your original plan. So that this is a very rigid sort of a planning, wherein that, okay, you will be finishing your project in 6 months, and any additional changes, anything that adds in, are not entertained.
Okay. Is this part of Agile then?
It is a part of Agile. Basically, if you see, there are these fixed bid projects that we do in some companies. So, we have, whenever you have this customer vendor sort of a relationship, you work in a customer vendor zone. So you have a fixed bid project, and you have the flexible one. So fixed bid is where your customer says that I have X amount to give you, and you have to finish the project within that. So that becomes a predictive planning, wherein you're just trying to spend a lot of time analyzing and planning, but then that you have to finish this project within this amount of time and money. So you cannot change your cost, you cannot change your budget. So that's the reason probably any changes that comes up in between will never be entertained. Next is the iterative approach. Yeah, so wherein it's basically a long-term approach
Okay.
And it suggests that the hypothesis that we do or the analysis that we do uh, is always tested and it is always right. So in this phase, since it's long term, and it can take a lot of time to do as well, so it's long term, even the stakeholders and the SMEs, they are also learning in this phase. In the case of predictive planning, your analysis is very clear. Your stakeholders know what they want to achieve. Your product owners know what they want to achieve, and then you're planning. Iterative planning, again, I said, is a long term stuff, wherein even each and every analysis that you do, that's been tested around the way. Like, if you want to, the analysis of, if you have probably you want to have create an application or a product, so you have thoroughly testing, okay, why do you want to do that, how it's going to help. And even on the way, your SMEs or the product owner is also learning about it. Okay, like, there's some new techniques probably is in the market, new technologies in the market, how can we integrate it? Sort of very collaborative kind of an approach that happens. And the planning in this case will be for just immediate future. So since you're learning all the way, so the confirmed plan that you make is just for one sprint. So that would be probably 1 to 4 weeks down the line, is what you know, that okay, this is what I have to achieve in my next sprint. And when it comes to the sprint next to that, then again you keep, your planning or your analysis is always in progress. You're never stopping your analysis. In case of predictive, you stop your analysis and then do your planning, because you spend ample amount of time analyzing what you have to do. In case of iterative, the analysis continues, and you can just take a break, just plan out what goes just in next 2 to 3 weeks down the line, and then again continue with your analysis. So this is helpful because you know that the market keeps changing, the requirements keep changing, because 6 months down the line, what you have thought of 6 months before might not be valid. So probably iterative is helpful in that case.
But the time is more.
Yeah. Next is the adaptive, wherein it has the advantages of both long term and short term, which is there for predictive as well as iterative. And now, this is a bit costlier, but this is very efficient, because the organization again here is constantly planning and analyzing its stuff. Uh, and you can also, the one problem in this bit is like, if there is lack of transparency, trust and collaboration, in that case there might be a lot of problem, because thing is like, you're constantly doing your planning and you're constantly analyzing stuffs, because it's a hybrid, it's a combination of your predictive and iterative. And this will require team members to have an agile mindset. The main problem that in India we face is, although we talk about that, okay, we are doing agile, we are doing scrum, but having a mindset of agile and scrum embedded within the team is very difficult.
Mhm.
That's one challenge even I face in my company, like, when while working. So that, just to, just keep on telling people that, say, this is agile and things can change. It's not in a waterfall that you're working on. So you just have to be flexible to adapt any sort of change. Right. So here as well in adaptive is like, the each plan that you talk about and the feedback that you take can be adjusted real time. So it's not that you're just pushing it back. Any feedback that comes can be added into the next sprint if required. And this is an effective approach, and it gives it's a good value add, and even the customer is able to see. So the collaboration here is much more better, because you are doing something, you're demonstrating it to the customer, they're giving you feedback, and probably next release or next to next release you're incorporating it. So even they are happy that their value has been taken into consideration, and there's a lot of learning as well which is involved here. Now the three, probably, if we compare these three of them, so adaptive, the cost is a bit high in this case of planning, because the cost can change as and when the project increases, because since you know that it's a combination of long term and short term. And the plan here is continuous. You continuously planning and analyzing, so everything goes together. And as I said, that the team, it requires a lot of collaboration with the customers, the stakeholders, and as well as the team to have an agile mindset. The iterative type of planning, the cost here is almost flat and does not change that much while the project is in progress, because you are continuously planning, you're continuously analyzing, then taking a break, planning a little bit, and then again analyzing. So the fluctuations wouldn't be high in this case. Mm, and it's a very responsive sort of an approach that it's said to be. And the cost is very minimal for predictive, because basically the aim for predictive is cost benefit and so the cost will never grow in case of predictive as the project grows, because you know that you have this fixed price to be completed on. And that's the reason it is very slow to respond to any feedbacks or any learning.
Okay. So scope in predictive remains the same.
Scope in predictive remains the same.
Iterative and adaptive, it could change.
It could change, correct.
What about the time frame? The time frame, you mentioned, iterative is long term and it's even longer. But is it set or it's flexible?
It can change basically. It is basically flexible for all of them. So we don't have a fixed time frame as such for these three different, but it depends upon your project duration. So predictive basically is sort of fixed beforehand. We know this is what we need to do. Like we have 6 months time, we have X amount of money, and we need to complete the project. For iterative and adaptive, it is a continuous flow. So it can just be flexible enough unless and until you have achieved your goal or the customer is satisfied, you can just continue with it. In iterative, yes, you are looking for the planning that you do, that is short, because that would be for 1 to 4 weeks, because your plan is just to plan for the next sprint, but your analysis continues. And in adaptive, it is like simultaneously doing both of them things together. So these two are flexible in case of time frames, but predictive is not to that level. Next, we'll be moving into the strategy horizon. Here, if you see, a strategy horizon also has 3 different horizons within. So as you know that we are in strategy horizon, we're just trying to understand what the organization structure is, what are the competitors doing and other bits. So here, basically, there would be 3 different parts to it. So first horizon, which is the bottom, the horizon 1, is defend and extend the core business. So we'll come to the details of it one by one. So in first horizon, you are basically understanding what you're suppose just think yourself as an organization now. So in the first horizon, you're just thinking that what is your organization, what does the organization do, what is the core business of your organization. The second horizon, you come to think that, okay, I know I do this. Can I extend my business to doing something more? Right. So you're just trying to build up momentums to learn or to get into new business. And the third one is like you basically find out various options to get into something future. So this is how you are building. And then probably once you come up with a conclusion in the strategy horizon, you think that, okay, this is a digital platform I need to create, then it can move to your strategy. Then it can move to your initiative. Right. So the first horizon, which is your horizon 1, it basically talks about today's core business, and you need to understand what your existing product is, what is your existing who are your existing customer. And here you know that you need to reduce your scope of development, because you know that your existing business is doing well. That's the reason you're thinking of something else, right? So in this case, whichever existing business you are into, you just need to optimize profit out of it. Right. You need to think that, okay, this is my existing customers. Just focus on your existing customers and try to meet their requirements. Do not try to put in any new development in horizon 1. which means do not try to add on anything to your existing business or your existing products. Just keep your existing products smooth going so that you are able to gain money out of it and optimize that profit. And of course, don't stop the business. Just see that everything is going smooth, your customer requirements are met, and your customers are happy, and your market stability is the same. So time frame for this is like to keep this going, probably 0 to 18 months. That's what it says, because whenever you're jumping into a new thing, you just cannot do it overnight. You have to keep the old thing as well in to smooth going for some time. Next is your horizon 2, which says that you need to represent the work we are doing for now for future. So the work that you're doing now, how will it help you to get into something, to a new venture, which will be a future delivery, right? So basically you revise the products for your new market. So what are the products that you think you can delve into, you can jump into, and how will they add benefit to your existing products? So don't build anything to your existing products, but then think that how will, if you get into some new products, how will that benefit your existing business, right? How will that grow your customer list or build your market presence? So the uh, basically the optimization, the profit that you're getting from the first horizon, you will need to spend that and understand your get that sorted in your horizon 2. You can spend that money understanding or doing a market research for your future products.
Okay.
So that is the time frame would be from 12 to 36 months it might take, because you are understanding how it's going to help your business, how it's going to value add your business. And next comes the horizon 3, wherein is where the most innovation is focused upon, and it is optimized for learning. So it's basically like new technologies that you're learning about, new market trends that you're learning about, and learn how to work with new environments, and then creating various opportunities around you. And this might take a lot of time, because it's like it involves a lot of learning. You're learning the technologies, you're learning new environments, new markets, so that kind of thing. So this basically, these three has to be always continuous in your strategic horizon. So it starts with focus on your current business, do not add anything new, but then just ensure that everything is going smooth. In horizon 2, you need to think about what more can you delve into. So where exactly you think, if you go digital or if you build a new product, how will that help your existing product, and try to utilize the profit from your existing product and spend it in analyzing your horizon 2. And in horizon 3, it is much more wider, wherein there is a scope of continuous learning new technologies, learning upon new environments, etc.
Okay, so the first horizon focuses on efficiency.
Yes.
The second one is trying to make something new.
Yeah.
And what's the third one?
Third one is basically you don't stop yourself, you just keep learning, because in IT, there is a lot of technologies, there's always new technologies coming into the picture. So that is something wherein you're doing a lot of innovation going on. So suppose your product is built in technology, suppose it's built in Java, but you know that down the line there is something new coming up, a new version of Java probably. So you know that you need your organization to learn that technology, to learn to adapt to that. If you do not have that kind of capacity within the organization, probably you have to train your employees to do that. So
Okay.
that wherein you're just always thinking about the bigger picture, because we in this you cannot just stop at one place. Things are growing every day, new technologies are coming up. Earlier we didn't have cloud based stuff. Earlier, if you see, applications were developed, they were all desktop applications, but now everything is hosted on cloud. So that kind of a thought has to be, you have to start that thought long before, because once if you don't start, then the competitors will of course go ahead. So that kind of learning process has to be around what is new in the market, what is coming up, what are SaaS based application, probably how are they hosted on cloud, and then gradually moving everything to cloud. So probably this example is good. So suppose you have a website, you have a desktop application, and you know that, okay, so that is your in current application. Then your horizon 2 would be like, okay, I want to move it to cloud. Now to move it to cloud, what all things is required, because I know my team is not capable to do that. So probably I have to spend a lot of time and effort and money, getting that competency into the team, or hiring someone who is a specialist in that. So these three different horizons would be in that way. But in day one, just because you think that, okay, I'll have to move my application to cloud, you cannot stop your the desktop application, because there are people using it. It cannot happen overnight. So it's a gradual change that happens. So you have to maintain the existing version as well. You cannot stop that. However, you have to work upon how to move from the desktop to the cloud, how to get this application moved to the cloud. Now when you are moving to the cloud, how are you doing it? Are you using your Amazon web services, or you're using some other services? So that kind of learning frame is required.
Okay, so 3 is more like research.
Exactly, this is more like research. Okay, now we talk about the various elements of strategy horizon. So basically, when you are doing this analysis, the first thing is what you need to know: the scope of your analysis, because everything is very vast. Unless and until you have a defined scope, you can't think over it. Then you will be just going haywire, like there is no point where you will be stopping. So the scope needs to be defined. Like I said, that if you want to move your application to cloud, so that becomes your scope. Now to move your application to cloud, what all things are required, you can just brainstorm within the scope. So scope is very important. The next thing is different kind of changes. So yes, with in the sense, the strategy horizon is the longest, if you think, because here you're doing a lot of analysis, research, everything. So things keep change, and in software things are changing within every week, I would say. So you need to understand the kind of changes. So is they analyze what the customer expectations are, because customer expectations also keep changing based on the market trend, of course. Then yes, the second point is about that. So what are the trends, or what are the changes that are happening in the market? So probably your competitor has already done something, and then probably then you need to analyze that as well. So you are planning to develop feature X, but your competitor has already done it. So now even if you develop feature X, that's going to be of not that value, because there's already that something there in the market. So probably you have to think about X plus 1 or X plus 2 to give value to your product. So analyzing the customer expectation, analyzing the competitor analysis is very important, and of course analyzing the change within organization. So the organization structure also keeps changing, the organization needs also keep changing. So uh, basically we have to keep three things in mind while we are doing this analysis. The third one is reducing complexity. Yes, so basically as a business analyst, in the strategic horizon, we have to break down ideas into smaller parts. So okay, we know that example probably would be, that you will have to move your current application into cloud. Okay, now to do that, you cannot just, so as a business analyst, you will have to break down the ideas. So probably you research, okay, what are the cloud based platforms available in the market? So that becomes one. Now to move into cloud, which service provider do you think is helpful? Do you want to go with Amazon web services? So that again is breaking down. So basically your vision of pushing your application into a cloud based environment is being broken down into multiple ideas, and then you pick up one of the ideas, do a brainstorm, conclude, or come to a decision, again pick another one, do a lot of brainstorming, and again come to a decision. So in this way you basically reduce the complexity. And the time frame, of course, as I said, that for strategic horizon, if you compare three of them, the strategy, initiative, and delivery, strategy horizon has the maximum time frame. So you can just take years to finish. Minimum is 3 years, and you can just, there's no limit to it, because there's a lot of study and everything is involved in this.
Well, wouldn't that keep changing?
Yes, so that's the reason you will have to keep these things in mind, wherein your market conditions change, wherein your complexity, reducing the complexity, understanding customer analysis.
Okay.
Right. So this one is strategy horizon. As a business analyst, what are the principles that we should basically follow? So as we have basically discussed these things, even I think day one. So as a business analyst, yes, we should understand the whole picture. We should understand what your organization goal is, and even so the business analyst has to be a part of all these three horizons. So you have to think how it's going to help your organization, because only when you think or when you see the whole picture, that's the time when you think about what are the changes that you could do, how you can help your organization, and of course think as a customer, like what value add it is going to be, give to your customer, and think what is valuable, because during discussion there will be a lot of things that you'll be coming into the picture. It's because you'll be brainstorming with your stakeholders, you'll be brainstorming with your customers, but then it is your responsibility to understand which feature is more valuable. So probably prioritizing that is very important, and get real using examples, because if you don't do that, because this is like sort of getting examples and putting it onto the table, like okay, if I do this feature, I'm going to benefit in this way, for example, some real examples through which your stakeholders or your product owner will be able to relate to. And here this is this point that we're talking about, like you need to understand what is doable, because there's going to be a lot of options, there's going to be a lot of things coming in, lot of from the analysis that you do, because it's brainstorming, most of it is brainstorming and research, of course. So there's going to be a lot of points, there's going to be a lot of things come, that will be put onto the table. Amongst those, you have to find out what is doable. So considering the current, your team, your organization structure. So considering that, what you think is possible to do. So that is something that a business analyst needs to decide. Uh, and of course, the continuous collaboration and continuous improvement is always that you're looking for. You're always aiming to do the improvement within the organization, and collaboration is always important with your customer, with your stakeholders. So that has to be continuous always. And avoid waste. So this is a lean model that we've already done in day one. So wherein any process that you think in the organization is redundant, and it's like it's something which is old fashioned, is not required anymore, just try and cut it out. So that will help you to avoid any waste.